Welcome back to the Lead Lamp Podcast. This is Brett Wiley, and I have Allen Peck Jr. from Potato Coop. You've probably seen their brand around central Pennsylvania, and now you have a physical location, right?
Yes,
so
exciting.
That's exciting. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I just wanted to quickly, introduce yourself, kind of talk about how Potato Coop became a brand. And I know my team, even when we were talking about it, we're like, oh, all of us have said that we've seen you around. So your truck is it's very easy to recognize, and we're happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and excited to talk about, everything, really, the whole journey. It was 10 years ago I got started, and it seems like yesterday. Mm-hmm. Time really does fly. And it's just, I guess when I was getting started, I guess I should throw it back. Growing up, I always had like an entrepreneurial spirit. Mm-hmm. It's I grew up in Perry County in Duncannon, and a lot of blue collar, hardworking people and that live there, and my parents included. And I just saw a lot of people working really hard and not always being the happiest. Mm-hmm. It seemed like a lot of arguments around finances, and I just wanted to find a better way, and it seemed like that was through business ownership.
Creating a new brand for yourself, or creating something that you can create your own money or your own income.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it really started because, I was just trying to make money every which way I could. Mm-hmm. I didn't have like my parents' credit card.
This was as a teenager.
Yeah. So if I wanted to do something, I had to make the money to do it. Whether I was betting my friends, playing sports or video games, or the Unimart in town goes out of business and I buy up all the candy I can and sell it at
resell
school.
it.
Yeah. So, just making money any way I could. And, I just looked around, and I remember I was, like I said, it seemed like it's yesterday. I'm 29 now. I started the business when I was 18. And when I was in high school, I'm looking around, and before you know it, we're graduating. Everyone's getting pushed into college. It's like, I'm asking my friends, I'm like, what are you doing? It's like nobody talked about their future until about 3 months before graduation.
And then there's a bunch of pressure to figure out what you're doing, or tell people where are you going after this?
Yeah, and we're just sitting around with my friends and we're talking, and I'm like, what are you going to do? And just kind of feeling this, feeling that I'm sure a lot of kids these days feel. Mm-hmm. And here I am, my friends are going to college. It seems unaffordable to me. It seems like something that, I really can't do even if I wanted to do. And I wasn't a great student growing up. I seemed to always try to outsmart, the system and take the shortcuts, and it's kind of because I was a problem solver. I found the easier way to do things. Mm-hmm. So why would I do it the hard way? And, that's not an excuse for, lack of hard work. And that's something that I learned as I got older. And, I committed myself more into doing business than, I ever have applied myself into something. And so, I'm looking around, and I see all these things of like what I don't want to do with my life. The big question they ask kids is, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Who knows? You only have this limited perspective on life. And here I am, trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, I knew what I didn't want to do. Looking around, I knew I didn't want to go, work construction for the rest of my life and live paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. I know I didn't want to go to college and, go into debt and get a degree that I didn't even need. So I look around, and the people that were living the type of life I wanted to, not in my area per se, was, you look at successful people. What is success? It's relative, but it was people who were happy to me. And, I looked around and I saw, investors and people who ran bigger businesses were living the life I wanted to live. I didn't want to work, hard. I wanted to create passive income. I wanted to have my time. I didn't want to trade it for $1. So you look at the ways that you can create passive income, and it's through being an investor or creating a business system. A lot of business owners, they go into business because they're good at construction. So they start a construction company. Well, I wanted to be good at business, and create business systems. I didn't want to own my job.
They create a job that's a perfect example. They create a job that they own. They control their own hours, but then oftentimes that gets them sucked into that revolving, that almost like a whirlpool where they get sucked in deeper and they're working more. And you see that a lot with solo or very small business owners.
Most business owners, I would say, and they find themselves working 60, 70 hours a week. And if they get sick, they don't make money. If they get hurt, they don't make money. Right. I wanted to do this for security, right, and to provide my future family a stable lifestyle. And, I know that my future wife, without knowing her, I know she wanted stability. I knew she didn't want to worry about me getting hurt and not being able to make money. So, I started, before I get into kind of like more down the road with business systems and processes and procedures, so here I am in high school. I basically know that I want to start a business. So I just start making a notebook full of ideas. And, I already had plenty of ideas growing up, selling candy, doing this, doing that. So I had no shortage of ideas. I mean, 200 ideas. If you talk to most people, crazy ones, they have business ideas. You stop a random stranger on the street and ask them, if you were to start a business, what would you do? They probably have some ideas. Yeah. A lot of people are dreamers. They just don't ever take the steps to get started. Right. And my big fear was I forget the quote. I think it's off the movie Speed or something, but it says like, most people sit around making grand plans for their life as it passes you by. And that, at 18, when I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself, that hit deep. And I was like, I don't want to be that guy that just sits around and talks about what I want to do. Right. I want to do it. So I'm convinced at this point I'm going for it. Yeah. And
this is at a young age still.
18. Yeah. I'm not even graduated yet. And a lot of people, they go to college, well, what were the objections when I start telling people that I want to go into business for myself, especially at such a young age? Well, that's risky.
Yeah. You're not going to get a degree. You're not going to find a job, or you're going to,
you should go to college.
You'll try this for a little bit. And then I'm sure you heard that too. Like, well, you'll try it and then you'll need to, actually go into a real job.
I think it was a long time. I would look at people, I was like 2-3 years into business. And they're like, you still doing that Potato Coop thing? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, they thought it was like a joke.
Yeah, you were all in.
Yeah, I was all in the whole time.
So real quick, before we go into the rest of that, you were talking about your notebook of business ideas. I'm sure there's some in there that were just like, you look back at it now, you still have your notebook?
It was my notes on my phone. So
okay.
I do.
I'm sure you have some when you look at it though, where you're like that. Some of these are just crazy, outlandish business ideas. Cause I know we have a couple people within our group here that are very idea minded. And every now and then you see one that's like, what were we thinking when we wrote that down? Or were we talking about that?
Right. But I'm sure I have some of those, but those ones didn't make it in the notebook. Yeah, I swear, all 200 of those I could start a business with all of them, I think.
Good.
But my brother, he was a role model of mine. He's 7 years older than I, and I learned a lot from him growing up, and he taught me, all the things he knew. But he, here I'm pretty optimistic, and he has more of a, he'd say realistic, I'd say pessimistic worldview. And
he's just a little more probably conservative minded than yeah.
So, but he was still not the type of guy that was like, no business, you got to go to college, you got to do this. But he certainly was, more realistic. Yeah. And so I would tell him all the ideas and he'd pick them apart. I'm like, all right, man.
It's good to have someone to bounce out off of.
It was. Yeah. It was. Because who knows? I say that any of those ideas would have worked, but that's probably not true.
But that's why you have a list of 200 and some don't,
Yeah. Yeah. So I ran it by him doing the flavored fresh cut fries, doing different seasonings on fries. And he was like, sounds like a great idea. That's all. That night I was filing paperwork, paid someone online $219 to file my EIN. You don't have to do that. Don't do that. You do it for free. I didn't know, I spent a lot of time and money making mistakes. And that's what I was saying. You can go to college and you can get a master's. What I've come to learn is the people that get that much schooling, they don't ever go start the business because they're like in the fear of paralysis. They see all the dangers and they see all the ways things can go wrong, so that they just don't do it. Me, I didn't care what walls that were going to be there. I was going to run through them. Yeah. And so there's value in that, naive.
And you pick up as well. You don't have, and this is very common with a lot of entrepreneurial minded people that start businesses or grow massive organizations is they don't necessarily always have a college education or an MBA or but they end up learning more in the process of launching those businesses. And it's always funny. You ever go to an event? I'm sure you've been to business events or read things. A lot of the people you follow either don't have those kinds of educations, or they don't pick them up until later afterwards. And then they decide it's time to go back to school because they're trying to start something else. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the people that you admire or follow as like business people, they don't come from that background. They just learn the hard way and do it the way you did it, you know?
And there's easy ways to learn things and hard ways to learn things. It's like, you know, your mom tells you don't touch the stove because it's hot when you're a little kid. Some people can learn from others' mistakes, and you can just trust your mom, and other people need to touch the stove.
Right.
When you touch that stove, you best believe you learned that lesson.
You don't do it again.
You don't do it again. And you know, so you can go sit in school and have people tell you not what to do and everything. But, you know, along with, people get confused, you know, they think that higher education is the only way that you're educated. Mm-hmm. Well, every one of those business owners not every one of them, but most of them, you know, they're reading every day. You know, they're listening to people. Their education never stops.
Right.
So,
and that's all free or very affordable.
Yeah. I mean, today's world with the internet at your disposal, I mean, you can find answers to any question you have, and you know, the resources and mentorship is just a touch away.
Right.
People who were unreachable, you know, 30 years ago, you know, now you have a chance of connecting with. An
author of a book you could potentially reach out to online within seconds on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. But like, people are very accessible now compared to when we were even in high school.
Yeah. And when I was 18, I did a lot of reading, you know, and it was, you know, any book that anyone says that, you know, you Google top 10 business books that you should read, you know, I was reading them. And that was really big for me. Mm-hmm. It really was. I mean, I remember I had a few friends who went to school to be business majors, and they came back like summer break or something, and we're talking and they're asking about how the business went, and the things I'm talking about, they're like, this is the stuff my professor's talking to me about. And I'm like,
but you're getting it in a $20 book.
And 6 months in business.
Right.
You know, so it's really invaluable that way.
So let's kind of transition into now. You've decided, your brother says it's a good idea. You've decided this is what I'm going to do now. You filed your
paid to get the
EIN. You did all, you pay. I mean, but that's a common thing. You just Google it and there's an ad that shows up on the top, and you're like, sweet. I get it tonight, or I can get it 24 hours.
Scammed, like they didn't take my credit card info.
Yeah, and then it keeps like recurring. There's a continual recurring charge of $295. You're like, what? I just wanted my EIN.
Right.
Anyways, what's the first kind of iteration of Potato Coop when you're launched? You have everything you need. Where did you kind of do the kickoff for it?
Yeah. So, I wrote the business plan. I, experimented with the product. And then I went and I got a small loan from a family friend, $6,000, bought the trailer. Me, my dad, and my grandpa built it over the winter, and that wasn't enough money, but I just bootstrapped it from there.
Right.
And, I remember I took it to a friend's house, and we threw like a big party as like a grand opening, and served everyone there. And that was the first time we did any sales. And then I remember the first actual event we did, it was at the Army Heritage Center. They do like an Oktoberfest, and they do something else in the spring. I think this one might have been the one that was earlier in the year. But, we show up, and this is my first, event. There's 8 other food vendors there. We're all getting ready in the morning. There's not a soul in sight, and I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't think we're going to make any money. And, here comes 10 o'clock or whatever, and we're getting some people coming in, and an hour later, we got 40 people in line. I got this little cash box. I'm running register. I got my dad in there working. I got like 3 of my friends in there working. Our ticket rail completely loaded up. The wind's blowing. My money box is so full they can't fit any more 20s in. They're blowing to the back of the trailer. I'm just trying to keep the door shut so they don't go out. Keep serving. I look up. My knees are weak. My stomach, I'm like getting a little nauseous. I'm just thinking like, man, we just got done building this. What if the fryer stops working? And
now you have a line of people.
And I have a line of people. I mean, I'm done. Put a fork in me. Everyone was right. This is stupid. No, but I just put my head down, kept going, got through it, and I'll tell you, it's like building a muscle. It hurts at first when you're going through things, experiencing things outside your comfort zone. But man, now to this day, it's seemingly anything that we haven't been through that we can't handle. I mean, we've had all of our cooking equipment stop in the middle of events, and we get through it. And and you learn
to think on your feet faster.
Yeah,
and you encounter more of those issues.
It. Yeah, and you're comfortable with it. But yeah, so we do that event, and all went well. And then the next thing was, I thought that so much money to be made in Harrisburg. So 2nd Street, the Capitol, all the business people getting lunches. So I'm walking down 2nd Street, knocking on every business door, asking who will let me park outside. Nobody. And I go to the Santander, and they're like, the branch manager was in there. She was like, if you open up a business account with us, you can park outside. Say less. Perfect. So I did that. At this point, I was just running it myself. And I remember I told my dad, I was like, all right, I'm heading down to Harrisburg, on Monday. He's like, all right, I'll drive the trailer down. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm driving. He said, it's too crazy down there. I was like, I got it, So here I am. No one's taught me how to really drive this trailer. I'm driving around trying to find parking. Like, they didn't have me a spot marked off. I had to drive around, circle the block, and like I'm trying to find parking until I could back this trailer up, in the busy city. And it wasn't that good. I'd do like $300 a day, and I guess that was maybe a tiny bit profitable, $50 profitable or something at that point in time, with that low of overhead. But so that's kind of how we got started.
Okay,
those were the first things we were doing.
A little bit of a trial by fire on the first event, and then. Well, other than the one with your friends.
Yeah.
And then the second lesson, I guess, was like realizing it was probably, this is going to be a grind to get it to where you want it to be.
And
like
I didn't think it was going to be like a get rich quick scheme overnight. But, I certainly thought, to this day, I thought I would be further along 10 years, down the road.
Yeah. So now you're using the trailer for a little while. Obviously, you're building up your brand. People probably start to recognize you a little more.
Yeah.
Because you're showing up to other events, just naturally driving it around, advertises for itself.
Right.
At what moment did you realize it's time to scale up now from a trailer to the truck? Because that was the next thing for growth, right?
And the plan was always to have a food truck work out of a restaurant, perfect that system, and duplicate.
Gotcha.
That was always the plan. It was always, McDonald's was something I studied. And they didn't obviously do that, but just the process of perfecting a system
and replicating
it. Yeah. So that was always the plan. And it took longer than I thought to even get into the food truck. And it's just because, you make a bunch of money, you spend a bunch of money. It's hard to make a profit these days. And it's not what you make, it's what you keep. Yeah, and here I am. I didn't have enough money from the beginning, so I was constantly reinvesting into more equipment and this. And
you, when you're in a growth phase, the more you grow, the more you have to spend.
Yeah,
and it's kind of that. It becomes very hard cycle to break when you're trying to continue to grow.
Right. Yep. So I can probably speak more on that with where we're at now. So once we get there.
Yeah.
But so when did I know it was time to get the food truck? Well, I knew it was time to get the food truck when a friend of mine sent me a listing on Facebook. The Facebook page was Clunkers and Junkers of PA, under 1,000 only.
Nice.
And there's this food truck in Altoona for $1,000. He said it was looks great. He said aluminum body. He's like, man, that thing won't ever rust. He's like, I said, well, let's go look at it. And we drive up, we look at it. I'm like, he crawls under. He's like, looks good. I was like, all right, I'll take it. And this was a beer delivery truck. This was not a food truck. It was part of a fleet. And this garage was maintaining them, and then they wanted to sell them. So, well, I'm like, all right, I'll take it. He's like, all right, you got the money? I was like, no. He's like, well, I had like 10 other people call me about it. So I drive home. I don't even got the money. I don't even have $1,000 at that time. I had to call up a friend of mine, drive to Hanover. He gave me $1,000. I drove back and bought it. And it sat for a year before I just kept, as I could get money, I got got everything and we built it out. And when I did the trailer, I mean, my dad and grandpa are very creative. My pap could weld and do that. It seemed like the older generations, they could do, build something from scratch and custom make a bunch of stuff. And what it kind of looked like to me, the trailer was kind of, I would say, like Perry County like.
Yeah.
It was just, it wasn't all stainless steel, like you'd picture this nice, shiny, brand new trailer food truck. We had, stained wood, just all the cheaper, I took every cheap route I could.
You bootstrap
I had
it.
to. Yeah. And when I did the food truck, I didn't want to do that.
Okay.
I wanted to, have the money to build it out exactly how I think it should be built out.
Right. You had a vision for that.
Yeah. And I wanted to do it right. And we learned a lot from the trailer. And I know eventually, like when I really pulled the trigger to build out the food truck was when, at first I was looking up events and calling everyone and trying to figure out how to get into more and more events and get our schedule booked up. But like you said, the more we drove around, the more people saw us, the more people reached out to us, got to the point where we were turning down events.
Oh, wow. And when did you officially put the food truck on the road, I guess?
I think it was 2018.
Okay. So it was before you kind of were in our area on that bleeding edge of the food truck craze. I feel like it got bigger right at COVID. Like, I hate to use that as a marker, but I feel like right around 2020, 2021, the food truck in this area, food trucks like took off like crazy. So
when I was running the trailer, it was only the same like 6 people.
Right. There was not as many in the area.
Food trucks. I mean, and now I couldn't even tell you all the food trucks.
There's a billion of them everywhere.
There's an endless amount of them.
So you were on that bleeding edge of like,
and I'll tell you, people said like, "Oh, it's such a great idea to start a food truck." When you did, I had a very limited scope and perspective on life when I was 18. I didn't do all this traveling and see different cities with a booming food truck industry. I didn't even know.
Yeah, I
knew trailers and fresh cut fries from county fairs.
Yeah, like the brickers or whatever fries.
Exactly,
yeah, that's
exactly. So that's what I thought of when I thought of flavored fresh cut fries. It wasn't the food truck scene that you see today. And I honestly would say by the grace of God, I lucked into that.
Yeah.
But I, started with the trailer and throw it back just a hair. I started with just fresh cut fries, but then that just left me for like events. What about lunches in Harrisburg? I can't just go set up on 2nd Street and sell fries. Yeah. So I added hot dogs and chicken tenders. And, I was like, well, there you go. You got some like a meal. And then after that, I started doing loaded fries. And that's where things really, I think, started to pick up for us at like festivals, doing Philly cheesesteak on fries and pulled pork on fries.
Yeah, it becomes a meal on top of fries then.
And it's unique and I could secure a half decent profit margin relatively with it. But then it got to the point where I'm adding this stuff to the trailer was not designed to handle even that.
Right.
So as we continued to grow and add more things.
Was it just like a travel trailer basically, or?
It was a brand new enclosed trailer, 6x12.
So there's some weight restrictions eventually, I'm sure you hit too. Certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. And we outgrew it, and we worked it for a while while we were outgrew it. So it was.
You maxed it out.
We certainly did. And we needed to get into the food truck.
Okay.
And so that's when I went ahead and designed that and went ahead for that step.
Nice. So then you're now just trying to move the timeline along. You've been in the food truck for a while, and you had alluded to this just a couple minutes ago, but you had this other part of your vision to support the food truck as well. So kind of talk about that, because I know that's a lot newer for you, is the physical location. Mm-hmm. But kind of walk us through where you thought that when you realized that needed to happen, like when it was the right time, if it ever is the right time,
right? And
then how you saw those two things supporting each other.
Yeah. So, I feel like it's like having a baby or something. It's like you never when's the right time. That's how I feel
think
like
too
starting
much,
a
it's
business
never the
or,
right time,
or
yeah.
taking that next big step in your business. If you overthink it, and here I am, I'm not trying to make these grand plans and won't let life pass me by.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I kind of jumped before I looked, and I saw a good opportunity and I thought, damn the statistics and everything else, I'm just going to do it. So I saw 0 Day Brewing was going into Susquehanna Union Green, this brand new luxury retail and luxury residential space.
Mm-hmm.
And they're building out all these stores, and I saw the renderings and I thought, this is what I've been thinking, because we don't just park the food truck on the side of the road and people flock to us.
Right.
We've always went to trapped audiences, whether it's an office building or a festival.
Mm-hmm.
We've always had a trapped audience. So I wanted that. I didn't want people to have to seek our restaurant out some back road. I wanted it to be in an area where there's already going to be foot traffic,
right,
and that there's, easy. It's just a good location.
Right.
So I saw this with Susquehanna Union Green in Lingelstown, saw 0 Day was going in. We always, beer and our food is,
goes hand in hand.
It goes well. We do well at breweries, and I knew that 0 Day would have a big draw.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read the Penn Live article. I saw an email address for Vartan and reached out and told them I was interested, and that got the ball rolling. And I just went ahead and went for it.
Yeah.
And I actually signed the lease and everything before COVID, and we didn't open. Wow. I mean, we've been in business with the restaurant. We opened it May of last year.
Okay.
So it took a while to get it done.
Well, and I'm sure the first leg that got taken out was, you don't know it's happening, but signing the lease right before COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone had gotten chopped off at the legs during that year, but then there's a lot of other hurdles just to get a physical location open that are way different than a food truck. I'm sure inspections are different and everything.
It was insane. I mean, I spent more than I got, I got a $6,000 loan to start the building.
Mm-hmm.
I paid an architect more than that just to design the blueprints.
Yeah.
I mean,
it gets
a whole new ball game.
Prices add up
talking
quick.
About the new construction. I mean, we built it out. I mean, me and my dad.
But you did it right. I mean, you did it the way you wanted to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't spare any expenses when it came to the build out
mm-hmm.
or, anything. I wanted it to be the prototype for our, expansion.
And now how does the, when you were talking earlier about how you wanted to elaborate on kind of the franchise model
mm-hmm.
and how the restaurant or the physical location supports the food truck.
Yeah, that's important because we started we had a warehouse
mm-hmm.
that we had built into like a little commissary, and that's what we ran the food truck out of. And it got to the point that we were so busy that we didn't have space in our freezers. I mean, we had 3-4 freezers in there and fridges, and we just didn't have space. And it got to the point where we were going to the store every day or every other day.
It becomes inefficient.
It was. Yeah. It was costing us too much money, and so. I knew the restaurant would help with that. We'd start getting, deliveries from food distributors. We'd have a walk-in freezer and everything, mm-hmm. and our, storage would go a long way there. So, and then, so how the restaurant, supported the food truck, that's how, so also, here you are at a restaurant and you have too much food. Like, what do? It's like, well, here we can send it out on the truck or vice versa. You're getting ready for this big event and it's raining. So I booked this event 3 months ago and it's supposed a year ago is how far a lot of big events get booked. So then it's going to pour.
Right.
And here we already ordered the food. We have all this stuff. Well, now we can use it in the restaurant. The synergy between the two, don't stop.
Right.
Really. And it's like an advertising arm as well.
Yeah, I was going to say you're planting a flag in a physical location and you have a truck that's basically a billboard driving around. So they're advertising for each other.
Yeah, and when the truck goes out now, they give out, a coupon that pushes them back to the restaurant. And so they get to experience the high quality food and high quality customer service mm-hmm. on the truck, and then we send that, we're trying to win, repeat customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they really go hand in hand in a lot of ways for us.
Well, I want to talk about that real quick. Because we're talking about building the business, but also you just mentioned customer service. How do you, when it's yourself, it's a lot easier to quality control your customer service because it's you.
Absolutely.
You know, if you have a bad day, you're going to treat customers maybe a little bit, not on purpose, but you're going to treat them different than if you're having a good day, but you know what you're doing with your customers. How do you find that challenge, or do you find it challenging to kind of control your quality of customer care now that you have a team as well?
I think that's a great question. I think it's probably the biggest issue with businesses expanding. And, you know, my dad, he owns his own very small construction company, basically just him and maybe another guy. You know, he's owned that for my whole life. And I've always said to him, like, why don't you get a whole team together and send them out and do more work and start marketing and et cetera, et cetera. He's like, it's my name on the job. Yeah. You know, he said, if they go do bad work, well, that reflects poorly on the business.
At the end of the day, it's coming back to him.
Yeah. But, you know, the way to prevent that is like, you know, some people say, well, that's why you have to have good help, you know, and that's true. You do, but good people still need like solid leadership and instruction and directions. And it goes above and beyond the customer service aspect, but for everything in business. When I was 18, 19, just running the trailer by myself, I was writing basically like SOPs, writing procedures for how to do this, how to do that. And I remember tons of people would come to me and say, why are you thinking about so far in the future? Like, that's going to cost you more money now, building out our systems and spreadsheets and project management software and really trying to find something that will help with business operations. And it's because I've always had the big picture of getting the food truck, running out of the restaurant, perfecting that system and duplicating. So I've always went about business like that. And I mean, I was writing procedures for how to do stuff in the restaurant 5 years before we opened the restaurant. And
it's kind of one of those instances of if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Right. So you were kind of just trying to, whether you knew it or not, you were getting ahead of doing that because you knew what you wanted and how you wanted it to run before you even did it.
Yeah. And so when I started to have food truck managers run the food truck and I wasn't out all the time, every time I went out to this day, sorry guys, you know, you'll get the best experience with me. You know, and they say that nobody cares about your business like, you know, you do. I mean, that's true. It's got to be. And, you know, I've along with the procedures, I started to make an emphasis on, you know, our three main things is what I do tell our staff. And that's, you know, high quality food and excellent customer service and cleanliness. Said if you knock all three of those things out of the park, customers coming back. I mean, every time. Yeah. And if you come into a restaurant and you have great food, great service, and the place is clean,
that's
what else could you?
What you're looking for?
What else?
The brand and stuff helps.
Yeah,
but you could have the greatest branding in the world, and if you fail at even one or two of those things, that customer, those people might never.
You'll get them in the door once, but you probably won't get them back in again.
Yeah,
and it's a lot. You know, I'm sure you probably know the statistics better than I do, but it's much cheaper to keep a customer than to get a new customer.
Oh yeah, and then it's cheaper to keep those customers as well because they're going to bring other customers. Like that creates a referral engine for you, and you probably see that now where you have people that talk about food or experiences that they had with the Potato Coop, and you get other business out of that or referrals from other events and things like that.
Yeah, I mean it's
cheaper to market that way.
Holistically do your branding and marketing that way and just provide a good service. It's, you know, you do a marketing, it's easy to do marketing for a great product. You know, so you start with a great product probably it markets itself through word of mouth and through referrals and recommendations, but you get everything firing on all cylinders, and that's where I think that's how business best practices needs to operate.
It makes it more affordable and easier for you to get your brand out there and to get more business.
Yeah, and you know, if we weren't doing those things, we're dead in the water. So I wrote, you know, procedures for why it's important to provide excellent customer service and how to provide excellent customer service. And we put all of our employees through that training. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I have, you know, kept a hand on the quality control for food and for, you know, service and cleanliness.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, that's a level of planning that a lot of people don't realize goes into something that looks as simple as French fries. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to,
No, seriously.
I'm not trying to talk down on it. That's not what I'm trying to do. But people don't see that when they visit your food truck or whatever. But like behind the scenes, you're doing a lot of crunching and a lot of planning.
I only go into the restaurant Tuesday mornings,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not the manager on duty. I'm just going into work with my managers.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so they manage you. They're your manager.
They legitimately are. They're actually upper managers. We have managers. We have food truck managers. Then we have my my AGM and my GM. And then there's me. I consider myself, I wear a lot of hats, but on the food service side of things, then I'm the food service operations manager. So as we duplicate, the food service operation manager will just manage the GMs.
Yeah.
And then I've taught the GM how to, manage everything under him, which is, the restaurant and food truck and everything that comes along with that.
But there'll be days you go in that you're the employee basically for your managers.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And that, I'm sure your employees and your team love to see that too, because you're not above being, there with them, because obviously you're the one that built this. And like you said earlier, you're the one that probably cares the most. I'm not offending anyone that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important for, not just to like show face, but to, there's so much nuance that goes into being a leader and
you don't get to see what's happening unless you're in the trenches occasionally.
Yeah. And I literally have processes and procedures in place for communication and feedback to get to me. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just need to see it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
But that's becoming less and less and less as we grow and as my management grows. So it's really getting into a good spot there. But that's how you can get your time back from your business, is by systems and management and, doing it properly, not just throwing someone in the position and saying, figure it out. Because it's something I'm constantly telling my managers, is like teaching them how to manage and how to teach people. And, it's not just delegating a task. You need to then go hold them accountable and check on that task, and just not to assume that people know anything.
Right.
I'm hiring 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, and, some of them don't even know they don't have any manners.
Right.
They don't know how to look somebody in the eye when they're talking and speak up when they're talking. And just a lesson for all the kids. We don't hire those kids anymore.
Right.
If we interview you and you don't, give us a good handshake and look us in the eye and stuff.
Yeah.
I said, I'm asking my managers to do too much when I'm teaching them how to parent these kids too.
Right. Yeah. You're not there to teach them
how to be
manners. Yeah.
Right, manners. Yeah. So hiring the right people, and that's how we've built our hiring processes around, it's always evolving, always improving. I have procedures on how to improve procedures.
Right.
Every month we relook at every procedure and talk to the manager about it. Is this good? Is this working? Should it change?
You're not ever set in stone on anything.
Yeah, because everything's always changing.
Yeah.
So what I do on a day-to-day, it's what I used to do 10 years ago, just writing how to make this business better and making it in a systematic way.
Right. It's tiny. It's a process of a lot of tiny improvements.
Yeah.
So now you have everything where you initially envisioned, I guess not everything, but you're kind of at that point now where you initially envisioned a restaurant and a truck. They're supporting each other. You have some there's always something to improve and build upon. That's just business. But let's switch it back to here at the end, like a little bit more of a personal thing. Like, what do you think it means to you to see yourself? Like, if you went backwards 10 years ago and said, hey, finally you have a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
This is where kind of it's getting to where you envisioned it. What's it mean to you basically to have Potato Coop?
Yeah. I think I'm probably tough on myself, and I've always been that way. I think that I just, it's hard to take a step back and look at it. I think I'm not there yet. I really think that there's still a lot more work to be done. I think that I do need to step back. And I remember being at a food truck event. Man, time flies. It was probably like 6-7 years ago, and it wasn't very busy. And I went over to one of the other food truck owners. I was like, this sucks, today. And he said, yeah, man, but just think, you could be like most of these other people and go into a job you hate tomorrow morning. I'm like, you're right. sometimes you need to take a step back. And, I just think if I do that too much, I'll let my foot off the gas and become complacent. So I try not to try to stay hungry. Yeah, but there's a balance in everything. And I definitely take a step back sometimes and look at, where we're at. And it's motivating. And it, when you're hungry all the time and you're trying to grow and you're trying to improve, it's almost like you get this appetite of, you're so hungry, you're never filled.
You want more.
You want more. You got to keep moving. It's never good enough. And it's like, whether you're going to the gym and trying to build your body, to a certain way, you can fall into that. There's a balance into anything. But, that's the thing with being, highly motivated, finding motivation. And I think that's honestly one of the biggest challenges in business is motivation. So people burn out.
Right.
And, how do I avoid burnout? I believe it's in focusing in the big picture. So I'm picturing where I want to be. And where I want to be isn't just, a franchise, big business, a franchise with tons of restaurants and food trucks, but it's to have my time.
Right.
And to be able to spend it with my family and to raise my kids and not just, send them to some school for education and some church for morals and, just be hands off. I want to be involved in my kids, lives and be able to spend it with my family. So, that's my big picture. And by focusing on that, it helps overcome, you're tired, you're getting burnt out. Why am I doing this? You have to have your why.
Yeah. Your daily struggles become smaller when you have a bigger picture.
They certainly do. And I think that's critical for, all business owners and just everybody in life, find your big picture, and then, you can break that down into even smaller goals.
And that, like you just said it, you hit the nail on the head there. It's not just for people that own a business. That's for anyone, whatever your goal is, whether it's a personal goal or whatever. You can have that goal there, but you gotta take care of yourself in the moment. But B, you also, in times where it gets a little tougher, in the moment, you have to kind of get over some of those smaller struggles to get yourself closer to that goal. Yeah. But like you said, there's a balance there too, where you don't want to be so hard on yourself in the moment and look at what you've done already and think, hey, we're making progress. You've had success with it. You have a brick and mortar location, but at the same time, there's more. You're still hungry. So,
well, and it's like, I knew that it's like people were, almost surprised I was still doing in business after a couple of years. Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I pictured that restaurant and food truck like it was real. I mean, what we have now, it wasn't like a if that was going to happen. Yeah. It was a when. Yeah. But, here I am 10 years down the road, 29 years old, still relatively young, certainly. But I thought I'd be almost ready to, have 3 restaurants and 3 food trucks by now. My systems would already be perfected. But if you don't find that balance and you don't live in the presence, you're going to, here I am. I have a 1-year-old in a week and I have another kid on the way. And if I don't spend, I need to enjoy my life.
Right.
And that doesn't mean don't work hard, but it's more of, I'm speaking on the perspective and the mentality of going through life and going through business.
And after you said that now, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
But second of all, you're about to be a lot busier. We have 2 kids too, so I understand, and they're about 2 years apart.
Yeah.
But
we'll be like, I don't know, 16 or 18 months.
Yeah. You'll see. You go from 2-on-1 to 2-on-2. Now you're playing man.
That's what my wife divide and conquer.
Yeah, you'll be good, but it gets hectic. So it'll be good though. But congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else like announcements or anything new that you wanted to kind of get out there about Potato Coop, or just kind of a parting word of wisdom for anyone that wants to start a business who's kind of younger like you, that maybe they're seeing some ideas that they could run with?
Yeah, along with, starting a business, it's, I'll just throw it back. It's like they're asking you, what do you want to do for the rest of your life?
At 18.
That's like hopping in a car and just saying like, go. Right. And you're driving. It's like, you need to look at the map, figure out where you want to be in your life, what you want your life to look like, where you want to be, point on the map, put your point in where you're going. Then, just like on your GPS, it'll show you 3 routes to get there. Look at the routes to get there and pick one.
One might have tolls.
Yeah.
Like college, one might take longer.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter if it's business or if it's just you planning your life. You know, you need to figure out, look at it from that perspective, find the big picture, and then it'll make the path clear. So once you look at that, what your life's going to be like, what you want it to be like, maybe the only path is through college. You want to be a doctor. I mean, don't just go read books and study doctors and watch YouTube.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I saw this on a YouTube video. I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe that's what your path, and then you can actually feel good about that decision, and you can feel bought in and committed and know you're making the right decision and really go for it. So, you know, I'm the type of guy that takes risk, you know, less than calculated risk sometimes, especially when I was younger, you know, but I guess I'd just say go for it. You know, you only live once, but be purposeful about it and strategic. And with the Potato Coop, you guys got to stop out. We just made upgraded, you know, just like we're always upgrading our processes and procedures. Part of that is always improving recipes as well. Yeah. So always trying to figure out how to make it better. And we just started doing our cheesesteaks, cutting the ribeye in-house. I mean, it's really good. We get the rolls shipped in from Philly every morning. We cut the ribeye. I mean, it's an authentic, really good cheesesteak.
Making my team hungry here.
Yeah. And
we'll have to come out for lunch or something.
Yeah.
Soon.
And, you know, we definitely made some improvements with the entire menu. And we recently have kind of redesigned it and everything.
Nice.
So if you've been to the Potato Coop maybe last year, you know, I would urge you definitely to come try it out this year. Yeah, with the offerings. They're all the same basically, but taking a lot of steps up in quality. Right.
Better quality, better ingredients, I guess.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit about Potato Coop. I think it's a great story of just having a vision, even whatever your age is, whether you're older and you kind of want to get out of what you're working in, or you're younger and you don't know what you want to do, but you have ideas. Like, it's a great, from the outside looking in, I know you said you're hard on yourself, but from the outside looking in, it's a great story of having an idea, implementing it, and finding success with it. So I thank you for sharing that story with us.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that. And it's not just for, you know, the young people as well.
You could do it at any age.
Certainly any age. And I know for a fact that if I were to have done anything, I mean, if I was anything completely unrelated, and right now I was going to go into business, I would go quicker than I did before. I'm smarter than I was.
So that's your one takeaway. You're like, I wish I'd done it I wish I was more expedient with it.
Well, you know, I learned the lessons the hard way, whereas sometimes face on the concrete hard, you know, and I'm just saying, if I was older, it wouldn't have those lessons wouldn't have been as hard. So, you know, if I were to start business right now, I'm not going to be where I would next year. I'm not going to be where I am now if I would have started, you know, now, but I would go quicker. So it's not like, oh yeah, look at him. He started the business when he was 18 and, you know, he's just now, you know, where he is now. If I'd have started 5 years ago, I may have arrived at the same place right here, right now. So I just want to,
and that's just age with wisdom.
Exactly.
With wisdom comes age, too. Or with age comes wisdom. I got that backwards, but that's also just, you can't avoid that at starting it at 18 versus starting at 26.
And that's the pros and cons.
Right.
You know, so I had the time to fall on my face. I lived with my parents for a while. I didn't need to make money. I had a safety net.
Yeah.
But if I went about it when I was older and wiser, I would make less mistakes and I would
be more
faster. Yeah. And so I see a great pro in starting young. And I also would encourage people, you know, no matter where you're at in your life, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, find something else, because life's too short.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap up on, but thank you for coming on. And anyone out there, make sure you visit their location and check out the food truck. Do you announce when your food truck's going to be at events and stuff online on your Facebook and everything?
Yeah, mostly on our Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, the truck's all over the place. We do a lot of private events, so you'll have to try to catch us at a public one.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.